All right, you guys, the last thing that we're going to cover in this section is the multiplicity and vertical asymptotes. So if you guys remember, we talked about multiplicity when we talked about polynomial functions, and multiplicity told us the behavior of the function at the zeros. So remember, we had two behaviors, crosses or touches. So multiplicity, when it comes to rational functions, tells you the behavior at the vertical asymptotes, okay? That's what it's going to tell you. And there's two types of behavior. Either your multiplicity is going to be odd or your multiplicity is going to be even. And depending on that fact, it will determine whether or not your graph is going to clash or clap, is what I call it. So if your multiplicity is even, okay, remember even numbers are any number that is divisible by 2, okay? And if your multiplicity is even, that means that your graph is going to clap, as I call it, when it approaches that asymptote. So when I think about clapping, I think about two hands. So your function is going to approach that vertical asymptote coming to the same infinity if you're clapping. So either they're going to come together and head towards positive infinity, or your function is going to clap and head towards negative infinity, okay, as it approaches that asymptote. If your multiplicity is odd, okay, then your graph is going to clash, is what I call it, as it approaches that asymptote. So what it means by clashing, it means that your function is going to head towards opposite infinities. So if you're coming from the left, your function is going to head towards positive infinity, while if you're coming from the right, it's going to head towards negative infinity, or it could be the reverse. You could head towards negative infinity coming from the left and head towards positive infinity coming from the right. That's what it means to clash. So in my mind, you're coming from opposite directions. So if we take a look at these examples down here, okay, these two graphs here would be examples of when your multiplicity is odd. So remember, when we're talking about multiplicity, we're talking about the degree on the factor where that asymptote came from. So remember, vertical asymptotes, you set the denominator equal to 0. Okay, remember to find them. So if I were to set this denominator equal to 0, I would have x equals 2. So on this graph here, you can see that it has a vertical asymptote at x equals 2, and the multiplicity is the degree on that factor, which is a 1. We don't actually see an exponent there, so it's understood to be 1. 1 is odd, so therefore we're going to fall under this clashing situation. Okay, so as you can see, as the function is coming from the left, it's heading towards negative infinity. As it's coming in from the right, it's heading towards positive infinity. The function is clashing as it's heading towards that asymptote. Okay, same deal here. All right, the multiplicity is 1 on that factor. All right, which is odd. The function is also clashing. Now, as you can see on this one, it's clashing in a different direction. That's because of this negative sign on the outside. Okay, so on normal, if you want to think about it clashing, is that the left side of the function heads towards negative infinity, right side of the function heads towards positive infinity. When this negative is out here, it reflects the clashing. So instead, you're heading upwards on the left side, down from the right side. So same deal here on these two functions on the right. These are examples of clapping. Okay, so we're going to have the same vertical asymptote for each of these, x equals 2, but the multiplicity is even in both of these cases. So you can see that the function is clapping. They're heading towards positive infinity for this one and negative infinity for the second one. It's heading towards negative infinity because of the negative on the outside. So the negative reflects that motion of the clapping. Okay, so anytime you're dealing with multiplicity and vertical asymptotes, your two scenarios are either your function is going to clap, which means they head towards the same infinity coming from the left and the right, or your function is going to clash as it approaches that vertical asymptote, which means it's going to head towards opposite infinities as it approaches that asymptote. Awesome.